when I first started to get involved in this, it was a bit about businesses doing a little bit for charities and doing their bit to support the community. Now I think we're seeing stuff that's far more powerful commercially for businesses, essential for businesses to survive, and also in ways that have far more impact with social enterprises and charities locally. So through NEXUS and the associated initiatives, I can honestly see us taking this to a truly new level. And what we'll be doing is to showcase the existing examples, inspiring people and coming up with new ways in which businesses can do this. The final thing I want to say as well is that, as much as most of you know, I'm a great supporter of charities and business and social enterprise. For me, this isn't just about charities. It's also about ways in which businesses can use their supply chain and the ways that smaller businesses can work more closely with bigger businesses.
But the difficult part for me was who to support, because there's some great organisations across Oxfordshire. And one learn for me last year in a difficult year was make sure you're enjoying what you're doing. Do things that you're passionate about. And yes, I love my football, but as much I love giving back to others, giving back to businesses, giving back to organisations that I support. And why Oxford United in the community? Well, how did the partnership come about? I was lucky enough to be invited to lunch at one of the games before Oxford United. Sat next to Chris, and Chris I think had just been to the launch and was really inspired about the programme and said to me, I want to be part of B4 NEXUS, what do you think? I said, well, I think if you want to be involved with business community, B4 you need to be involved with. He said, well, can you help me find the right partner? And I said, that's interesting. So tell me more.
Hopefully enabling this is going to allow me to kind of grow some trees and kind of get the fruit from them in the next kind of months, years time to come, and hopefully this is a kind of a long-standing relationship, and we as two organisations share very similar values and mission and what we want to do. So that, to me, this is why this is such a unique opportunity to go for.
Reciprocate was put together in about 2016 by the then High Sheriff of Oxfordshire, Tony Stratton. I was just picking up on what Grant said earlier, which is quite interesting about businesses and this whole sort of working with charities. And the phrase he used was businesses were doing their bit, and it was that. It was a little bit that you did on the side to assist us. But it's now very much front and centre of what all businesses do, and it's part of the values that not only your customers expect, but your employees, all of your staff, the whole of your business involves those values. And that's why it's so important to you these days. So Reciprocate started off in 2016. It was a network to bring businesses together to do better CSR. It was a reflection of the fact that CSR was already going on in the community, but it's how we can work together collaboratively to do better. And we've now got approximately 60 companies who've come together. And it's been a sharing of ideas. That's really what Reciprocate was about, was sharing ideas, best practice. We had 5 key aims. One was signposting businesses to charity, charity to business, because a lot of businesses felt that they were being approached by charities all the time to ask for money and for other help. And it was a bit of a barrier to allow them to say no or to choose charities they could best work with. Second bit was employee volunteering, so finding opportunities for employees to get involved in the community. Third was better work experience, and Blenheim Palace were very engaged in that part to provide a handbook which is available outside on how we can engage better and businesses can actually offer their experiences into the workplace for children. There was then Encounters, which was workshops that Clock and House up in Bicester put together for us. And then finally was board appointments, and I was sort of spearheading that, trying to get senior and middle directors involved, actually actively engage with businesses. The key to any organisation is resourcing it and making it work. That's where Community Foundation came along in 2017 and said, we'd like to host you as an organisation. And that has worked well for the time being. But I think there's been a reflection from both of us that we're probably not reaching the limits of what we're able to do, and there's a slight divergence in our aims. Grant has been really seminal and key to everything that goes on in this charitable environment, and he really is a key to what's going on with Nexus as well. And so I think there's a reflection that there's an ability for Reciprocate and Nexus to come together so that we collaborate further, but also the fact that in actual fact B4 is already doing most of those five elements that's already going. So we'll have Grant on hand to help with business and charitable signposting. We'll have Grant on hand as well for volunteering, and that already happens in the B4 environment as well. Plenty of examples of that. The workplace work experience, Blenheim are engaged in B4 and will continue to be involved with that, and there'll be greater links with the local enterprise partnership as well. Encounters or doing masterclasses is what B4 is really aiming for now, and we look to develop that with B4. And finally, board appointments is something that I will personally carry on with, and Richard and I have already spoken about how many people he's approached to help out with charitable trusteeship. So there's a lot that actually already goes on, and it just seems to make sense to bring us all together. The key to this is making sure that our existing companies fit with the B4 model or would like to join in, and so there's an introductory offer, as it were. Reciprocate members are going to be invited to become B4 members on a complimentary basis for 6 months until June, end of June this year, and then can decide whether they want to continue or not. But that's a way of bringing the two parties together. And I think need is greater than ever out there. I had a talk from Yvonne Rees, the chair of the County Council, recently. Said since, I think it's 2010, County Council has slashed 400 million from their budget. Their annual budget is 600 million. So that's quite a large percentage that they've slashed over the last couple of years, and is continuing to increase. We've got 4,000 charities, and we know that need is greater than ever in Oxford and Oxfordshire. And I really think that Nexus and the Reciprocate link is something that will work well together.
So I think Richard said, so from about 2014, we've been working on Reciprocate. And I think the key thing as we start a new decade is to really, really look at ourselves. And actually, you said the word, Mike, you said it was all about impact. And I guess the Community Foundation has really been thinking about, have we really had enough impact with Reciprocate? What are our key skills? And, we can't put on lots of events. We haven't got lots of resources. So I think having Nexus around, we see it as just a natural evolution. Businesses are doing great stuff. So for me, there are sort of three key words here. And Chris said it himself, it's all about collaboration. So I think what the Community Foundation really wants to do is just join up the dots. So last October, when Nexus launched, I think I talked at the time about the launch of World Homeless Day and the Oxford Homeless Movement, and we were talking about that as being a collaboration of the 38 charities that are working on homelessness coming together. And that is about joining up the dots. And if we're talking about that all the time, it seemed to me, why aren't we joining up the dots with Reciprocate? Because actually what we're trying to do, we never want to replicate. And if we don't have to replicate, we've got lots of resources. We've put the resources out there on the table. There's a handbook on employee volunteering. There's one on inclusive recruitment, which is the thing that's close to Grant's heart. How can you, in your own business, you don't have to do things charitable, you just have to think about it from a sort of inclusive recruitment point of view. There's a handbook on the work experience. So what we really want to do is just share everything that we've built up in Reciprocate over the last couple of years, a lot of with Grant's help, and just make it freely available. So the offer from Richard to for any of the Reciprocate members that aren't already members of B4, and there are a significant overlap here. So I think what we're seeing is we're hoping it will definitely be more of an evolution. But what does the Community Foundation do really well? We're really worried about need. Richard's just talked about, the loss of funding for the community sector generally, but we want to prioritise our work on where we see their greatest need. So that's something that we want to make available to any business. If you want to know, statistics or anything, then come to the Community Foundation, we'll be able to produce reports, insights easily enough. But the other thing that we really want to do is fundraising for the sector. So I think, you know, we're about money, and I stood here in October and I used the word time, talent and treasure, and Richard corrected me at the time. He said, don't use the word treasure, it's about currency, you know, how relevant are you? But I think if we're the Community Foundation, the key thing that we can bring is money to some of these problems. And perhaps we'll sort of just say, you know, where we are with the homeless movement. We put up a match fund to raise £150,000 over 4 weeks over Christmas. It's closing tonight, and I believe we're about £3,500 away from the £150,000. And I think that's about us joining up for the sector. So if we can support NEXUS and the Reciprocate and the B4 businesses in doing some of that stuff, it definitely isn't about money. So I think the fact that you're bringing, you know, just joining up skills and time and critical friends, that's absolutely what you can do. But I think what the Community Foundation can do is prioritise on the need and actually bring some money to the sector, and we'll all do better and be more focused. And that's actually my little pledge for 2020, is actually to work smarter and actually do what we do but better. And I think that's where we started NEXUS in October, was actually the chance for us all to actually achieve greater impact. So that's sort of where we are, and it's an evolution, isn't it, Richard? It's not an end, it's a really happy marriage. So, Mark.
In terms of what I've got to say, I think it's really just reinforcing what's been said before, that a lot of what's going on here is not only sort of cutting edge, but really sort of meaningful and makes a practical impact in our community. And what I see in the rest of our business, Oxfordshire is a great county, and there's a huge amount of good going on, and let's build on that over the next period. And one thing that struck me to start with was we don't need in any way to be ashamed that actually giving and supporting charities, getting involved, is partly about the charity itself, but partly about ourselves, our own interests, our own businesses, and increasingly looking to the younger generation and older people. They want to come to work for businesses that got real purpose about them, and actually getting out there and doing things in one community from which we draw our resources from is as important as the bottom line. And I always see that sort of running a business is about a whole variety of factors. If you take away one of the pegs from it, the risk is it all falls down. And one of those pegs is very much about being part of the community in which one operates in. I also don't think there's any harm in terms of picking areas that one enjoys oneself. Working with people you like, that you're going to have more impact if you actually get personal satisfaction out of the work you do. So again, I'd encourage that, and people to be happy to do that rather than feeling that they're just choosing things of their own interest. If it's making an impact, do it. But the other side to it is there are some real issues in terms of our community here, whether it be the homelessness, dealing with sort of difficult issues in terms of people coming out of jail and rehabilitating them within our society. And there are times when we actually have to move beyond that personal interest and say we have to come together to make an impact on those things that really affect our community. And I'm a capitalist. I'm sort of very proud in terms of we're a free trading nation. But I think over the last few years, all of us have had to sort of stand back and say, actually, is capitalism serving that wider community? And my view is that if, as business people, the lucky ones that have a better income than the vast majority, if we don't do our bit, the risk is that the state will come in. And I'm very much of a view that in terms of helping the poorer people, that if we do our bit, that capitalist model will stand good and keep us in the right place going forward. In terms of Reciprocate and NEXUS coming together, I'm really pleased that it's been acknowledged in terms of what Reciprocate, Tony Stratton and Richard done over the years, and it's actually bringing together of two organisations, each of which have got their own unique features, and in evolution towards a better organisation. Let's not forget that good work and the material that's been developed by Reciprocate and build on it going forward. I'm very pleased that Richard's asked me to be part of the steering group, and I think it's absolutely right that we look to evolve, as Jane and Richard have said, and make sure that we're relevant for the third decade of the 21st century as well as the last decade. So, and the final thing I just wanted to say, in some ways it feels that I'm sort of preaching to the converted here. I mean, I doubt if there's anyone in the room that doesn't believe in what Grant, Richard, Jane have said. But I think the real challenge for us is to get beyond that and get the message out to a wider community so it becomes a much bigger group of people doing things for the less well-off in our community, doing it in their own way, but spreading that message as far and wide as possible. I think that's the real challenge for us going forward.